Once upon a time, as has been said before, there was a sea slug called Sydney, who was in love with a gigantic creature called Wendy the whale. But there was a love rival, and that rival's name was Colin the Killer Shark. Now Colin had been flipped by Wendy's giant tail across the oceans and across the seas, but bit by bit and day by day, Colin made his way back to where the Killer Shark knew that Wendy the whale and Sydney the sea slug would be. But this time, on his journey, Colin actually met a creature, a jellyfish by the name of Jennifer. She was known to one and all as Jennifer the jocular jellyfish. Now the reason why she was known as the jocular jellyfish was because she was always up for a laugh, and how people didn't know just how much up for a laugh she was. So Colin said, when he met her one day, "If you don't do what I'm going to ask you to do, then I'm going to eat you up, you squidgy little mess of jocularity." Jennifer, of course, was terrified by this killer shark with the giant sharp teeth that could have raked through a jellyfish-type body as easy as going through a blancmange. So of course she said to Colin, "What is it you want me to do for you?" And he said to Jennifer, "I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to fall in love with Sydney the sea slug." She said, "What? That slimy little creature that's in love with that gigantic Wendy the whale? How could you ask me to do such a thing when you know full well that if I did anything of that nature, the Wendy would go out of her mind, and that would be an explosive moment for us all to behold." "Nonetheless," said Colin, "I'm afraid that unless you want me to eat you all, then you're going to have to do just that." So she said, "Well, okay then, Colin, seeing I have no choice in the matter, I will try and get Colin to do what I want him to do." "No," Colin said, "I don't want you to get me to do what you want me to do, even though it may be a jocularly funny little thing to do. I want you to get Sydney the sea slug to do it." And she said, "Oh, sorry, that was just a trip of my tongue." And he said, "Well, don't let it trip again, my sweetheart, because next time your tongue will be bitten off, and then how can you sweet talk Sydney the sea slug into falling in love with you?" And with that knowledge in her mind, that whichever way she turned it, she'd end up like a skewered blancmange, Jennifer went on her little way, and there she found one day dear old sweet old lugger, Sydney the sea slug, all on his own, minding his own business, doing nothing at all, or so she thought, because what he was really doing was thinking about his eternal love, Wendy the whale. So she gently floated up to him and said, "Hello, Sydney. How are you today?" And Sydney said, "Hello, Jennifer. How are you?" And she said, "Well, I'm doing okay, and I'm glad that you know who I am." And he says, "Everybody knows who you are, because everybody knows that you're up for a laugh. And that is a great thing to be able to be." And she said, "Oh, thank you very much, you dear, sweet, lovable sea slug." And she said, "Where's Wendy today?" And then she said, "Oh, Wendy's on out and about, actually destroying whaleboats, something that she enjoys doing a great deal. And meanwhile, I'm sat here picking sea daisies for her and making a sea daisy chain. So I would like you to just let me get on with it so that I can carry on what I'm doing." But she said, "Oh, Sydney, what you really need to do is you really need to have a good time. You want to find out that there's other things in life besides Wendy the whale. And I know that there's a party going on at the Aqua Marina Night Out nightclub. And I'd love you to be there There's a great DJ on there called Andy the Spoff, and he plays great music for one and all to enjoy. And would you like to come with me to that place of fun and laughter?" And Sidney, who had actually not seen Wendy for quite a few days, thought to himself, well, perhaps it might not be a bad idea to go and have a little fun while I'm waiting for the return of the one I love. So he said, "Okay, Jennifer, I'm up for a laugh too." And what Sidney didn't know was that there was a certain killer shark called Colin who was lurking round the corner, listening to everything they said. And he watched them sail off towards the Aqualung nightclub, and he thought, yes, now I've got him. I'll be able to have a word with the wonderful Wendy the whale when she returns. And Sidney went off to the nightclub, and he did have a good time. He had fun and laughter and giggles and joy. But what he didn't know was that this killer shark, who was his determined foe, was out sailing the seas looking for Wendy the whale. And he came across her, and she said, "Hello, Colin. What do you want? I thought you'd learned your lesson the last time, and you were no longer going to try and bother me." "Oh, Wendy," said Colin, "I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you, sweetheart." And Wendy said, "Don't call me sweetheart, you little horrible killer shark." And she said, "Oh, by the way, where is my Sidney, the sea slug, the one I love?" And she said, "I hope this time you haven't done anything wicked to him, like blocking him up in a cave or anything of that nature." "Oh, no, perish the thought," said Colin. "I wouldn't do a wicked evil thing like that. In fact, I didn't do a wicked evil thing like that the last time. It was those wicked dolphins that locked him in there. It was just Sidney, who'd lost his mind temporarily, who tried to convince you that it was me that did it, but secretly, and I do tell you this truthfully, it weren't me, babe. No, it weren't me, babe." And she said, "Colin, what is it you've got to tell me?" And he said, "Well, actually, what I've got to tell you is this, that the rumour mill has it that Sidney the sea slug, the one who supposedly eternally devoted to yourself, is out canoodling on the town with Jennifer, the jocular jellyfish, and apparently Colin is really up for a laugh, and you should hear the stories of what people are doing, people are saying about what Jennifer is doing to make your Sidney sea slug giggle." Right. And she says, "Just exactly is it that they are doing? Tell me what it is, quickly, you slimy little, horrible little killer shark." And he said, "No, I'll tell you what to do, Wendy. Follow me. Follow thee," she said. "Follow thee, I'll swallow thee," she said, "if you're lying to me." And he said, "Oh, could I do anything of that nature, Wendy? You know I wouldn't do anything wicked and evil like that than lie to a giant creature like yourself who could destroy me in a moment." So off they sailed quickly and swiftly over the seas to the Aqualung nightclub, and there she saw Colin jiving and a-diving with Jennifer, the jocular jellyfish, and she could see that they were holding each other in a warm embrace, and she shouted at the top of her voice, "Sidney, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing with that jocular jellyfish, Jennifer?" And she said, "Oh, it's her right, Wendy. I'm only having a lovely time dancing." And she says, but there's one thing that is a problem. I can't seem to get loose of Jennifer. She's got me sucked in, and she keeps saying to me, I'm going to suck you in and blow you out in bubbles. But I can't get away from her. Can you disentangle me from this here wicked, evil, horrible jellyfish? Because I'm afraid I can't get away from her. She's got me in a tight grip. And Wendy just stared at Jennifer and said, "Jennifer, why are you trying to come between myself and my sea slug?" And she said, "Oh, Wendy, Do forgive me. I wouldn't do anything of that nature at all, because you know that we all know how much you and Sidney the Sea Slug love each other. It's that horrible Colin, the killer shark, who said to me he'd rake his teeth through my body like a knife going through blancmange if I did not try my best to get Sidney to fall in love with me instead of being in love with you. But I knew I couldn't do it. I tried my best, but I couldn't, so I kept him in a grip so tight that nobody else could get near him, because I knew there'd come that moment when you returned to say, "What's happening with my Sidney?" And now you know the truth of it. I'm pointing my jellyfish fingers at that horrible killer shark. He is the one who tried to break up you and Colin and Sidney the Sea Slug. And now I'm so tongue-tied, Wendy, because I can't decide whether you're going to kill me or whether Colin's going to kill me. And she said, "Don't worry about that." She said, "I'm going to give him a double flip with my double flip flippers, and I'm going to flip him into the flipping distance so far away that he'll never come back for 100 years. And with that, she turned on Colin and said, "There you go, Colin. It's time for you to go again." And she flipped once, she flipped twice, and she flipped him so high into the sky that he flipped from the Atlantic to the Pacific to the Indian and round the world 3 times over, and ended up in the English Channel on the beach, where the people all gathered round and said, "How the hell has a killer shark got onto this beach?" Well, now you all know. The end.